Yun na yung school nila sa Craft.
Rugged Korea and Vietnam, in our own land and in unknown resting places in every continent and every sea. We remember all who have since fallen by our side in both world wars and modern day conflicts, in the air and on the sea and land, and all our loyal friends among the people of New Guinea and elsewhere. We think of every man, woman and child who in those crucial years died so that the lights of freedom and humanity may continue to shine. May we and our successors prove worthy of their sacrifice, lest we forget. Free to come forward. Mr. Chris Galactus, Member for Clarence. Mr. Alan Ryle and Eric Schaefer, representing South Grafton RSL Sub-Ranch, and Mr. Dennis Benfield, representing Grafton RSL Sub-Ranch. Mr. Andy McGill, South Grafton Ex-Services Club.
Board to rejoice in Korea. Instead, they're in the thick of battle, writing a new and gallant chapter in the Anzac saga. At about midnight on the 23rd of April, Chinese forces began a series of fierce assaults on positions held by the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Australian Regiment. Desperate fighting ensued across the valley over the following 2 days. New Zealand's 16th Field Regiment provided vital fire support to the hard-pressed Australian and Canadian infantry on the hills above them. Without this close support, it is unlikely that the infantry would have been able to hold off attacks by the much stronger Chinese forces, despite their determined defence. The actions by the Aussies and Kiwis at Kapyong, with their Canadian, American and British comrades in arms, prevented a disaster for the UN forces and stabilised a rapidly deteriorating situation in the most difficult of circumstances. As on so many battlefields before and since, at Kapyong, Australians and New Zealanders proved once again that in battle they could always rely on each other. There can be no doubt that New Zealand's and Australia's role in the Korean War and in many other wars and conflicts has had a tremendous impact on our societies. Many of our veterans and their families continue to be affected by the strife and impacts of conflict. Military conflicts have not only shaped the traditions of our armed forces, but are also a clear representation of how, in times of adversity, both countries repeatedly resolve to stand together in a common cause. We know each other very well, perhaps more so than any other 2 nations on this earth. We share a similar history of nationhood, founded under harsh circumstances and in forbidding environments. And despite being fierce competitors on the sports field, we are, put simply, pretty good mates. Underpinning this mateship and mutual understanding is a common military history, shaped by the terrible losses suffered by our respective countries, starting at Gallipoli in 1915, and on so many other battlefields where we have fought alongside each other in the years since. From the Western Front and the Middle East in World War I, to the North African deserts and the Southwest Pacific Islands in World War II, in Korea and Vietnam, in peacekeeping missions around the world, and in more recent years in a wide range of operations in places as diverse as Timor-Leste, Afghanistan, Iraq and South Sudan. Kiwis, Aussies have and continue to work together. They've done so while sacrificing so much in the interest of a safe and stable world, protecting the vulnerable, and in search of an elusive peace. We also help each other when disasters at home challenge the resilience of our populations. In 2011, the ADF provided significant support to New Zealand in the wake of the devastating Christchurch earthquake. More recently, it was the NZDF's turn to send support to help Australian states cope with the aftermath of the terrible bushfires in the summer of 2019 and 2020. Over the last year, both of our Defence Forces have deployed significant numbers of personnel as part of their national responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite not being particularly military in nature, our personnel have been at the forefront of operations that aim to keep our respective populations, societies and economies as safe as practical in the face of an unseen but nonetheless dangerous threat. The demanding work in isolation and quarantine facilities in both countries has put a great strain on the personnel involved and also on their families. But what all of these operations and commitments have demonstrated is the importance of the unique range of skills and capabilities that our respective Defence Forces bring to the service of their country. They've also shown that today's New Zealand and Australian military personnel, like those who have served before them, are dedicated to upholding our respective national interests and defending the values and principles that we hold dear. Today, on Anzac Day, we acknowledge that this service, just as it was in the past, is never without cost to the women and men in our armed forces and to their families. I'd just like to say in closing a big heartfelt thank you to Fred Knight and his lovely wife Diane, to Alan Ryle and the other members and supporters of the South Grafton Services Club for the amazing hosting that they've shown to my partner Jodie and I while we've been hounding here for the weekend. We did the Capion ceremony.
Now have the commemoration of fallen, read by Taylor, tongue around the mouth. Taylor O'Hara from South Grafton High School. please remain standing for God Save the Queen, followed by the national anthem.